Thank you, Andy. Hello, everybody. Bore da. Just a quick croeso welcome from me to this webinar on literature searching and finding information, which is brought to you by the NHS Wales Library and Knowledge Service and the NHS Wales e-Library teams. So I'm Paulina Goodlad and I'm the librarian up at Wrexham Mile Hospital. But today's session is being delivered by Rhys Whelan from Library Services Manager at Morriston Hospital. So the aim of this 1 hour session is to give you as much useful information about how to search literature as possible. We're going to cover a range of topics this morning, but sometimes we will not be able to go into as much detail about some of the things as we would like, but we have put together some tutorial videos to cover these topics more extensively, and we will provide the links to these videos at the end of the session to supplement what we're going through today. All of the NHS Wales librarians have lots of experience with literature searching, and we are available to support you with both training and literature searching on a one-to-one basis as well. So the contact details for your local librarian can be found on our National Library Services website, and we will provide the link for this at the end of the session. Don't worry this morning about struggling to write everything down as we go along, as we will be sending out a copy of these slides to everyone who's attended the session or who has registered for the session to reread and to use as you need them. But if there's anything that you are unsure about or you'd like some more information as the session progresses, please feel free to use the chat box to ask any questions. I'm going to be monitoring the chat and I'll try and answer them as we go along. Or additionally, there will be some breaks for me to ask Rhys any questions as well. But for now, I will hand over to Rhys to begin the training session. Thank you, Rhys.
Thanks, Pauline. Thanks, Andy. Bore da, good morning, everyone.
Bore da. Bore da.
Today's session is on literature searching, and just to reiterate what's already been said, there's plenty of help and support available beyond just this webinar. NHS Wales librarians have lots of searching experience, and we're available to support you with training and literature searching. So the website for NHS Wales Libraries is on the slide there, and you can find the contact details of your local health board librarian who's there to support you with literature searching beyond this webinar. The aim of this session, though, is to give you as much useful information about searching in an hour as possible. There are some areas which we'll cover that we won't be able to go into it in as much depth as we'd like without making the webinar far too long for you. But don't worry, because my colleagues at NHS Wales Libraries have put together short training videos to cover those areas in much more detail. And the benefit of that is that you can go back and watch those videos at your leisure. So the links to those videos will be included in the slides as we go along. And you will receive copies of the slides at the end of this session. So Pauline said, don't panic about trying to write everything down. But a very quick activity then to start us off. I just wanted to ask you about your experiences of searching for health information online. Using the Teams chat box, if you could let us know what databases or search engines that you might have used in the past to help you to find health information online. Is there anything in the chat box, Pauline, just because I can't see my my Teams at the moment?
Nothing in the chat box at the moment. Oh, no, there's some people, they're coming in now. Somebody has searched the NICE guidance for information. Somebody saying they're just using Google.
Yeah.
Medline, Cyclit, or another person saying they're Googling information. The e-library searching someone's used. Another one for Medline and somebody for Google Scholar.
Yeah, excellent. Some good sources there. Today we're going to be using Medline, which is very similar to PubMed. But yeah, so we'll be using that to do a live demonstration in our search this morning. So here are our learning objectives for today's session. In today's session, we want to develop knowledge and understanding of how to use tools to clearly define your selected information topic and identify and frame problems or research questions. We want to be able to identify appropriate online sources to search for our topic. And then we want to use online sources to locate information by keywords, Boolean operators, truncation, phrase searching, and special punctuation where appropriate. So here's an outline of today's session. We'll start by looking at the different kinds of evidence that we might expect to find when we search and where we might look for it. We're going to look at how to structure a question. We're going to think about how to take that question and build our search strategy. And then there are several different things that we need to consider here. It includes things like searching with keywords and index headings, the terminology we use, and how we combine them all together. And finally, we look at actually applying that search to a database. So we'll take a search and apply it to the Medline database as a practical example of how we might perform a search. So first part of the session, different kinds of evidence and where we might look. So this may already be familiar to you. It's the pyramid or hierarchy of evidence. It's simply a diagram that was created to help us understand how to weigh different levels of evidence in order to make health-related decisions. So this shows us some of the different kinds of studies we might expect to find when we search. The pyramid also shows us which kind of study methodologies are the most rigorous and robust. So systematic reviews are considered to be the most robust, and they sit at the top of the pyramid. Beneath that, you have randomized control trials, cohort studies, case control studies, and case reports. And it's worth noting, you should never judge the quality of evidence you come across when you search using the hierarchy of evidence alone. You should always critically appraise the evidence. CASP and the SURE unit in Cardiff University have a number of useful checklists for a number of different study methodologies available on their websites. And this will help you to determine the risk of bias in the research that you come across. We've also recorded a video regarding the hierarchy of evidence, which goes into more detail about the various kinds of study designs. And we've got links to the checklists that I've talked about included at the end of the presentation. So at the outset of any search, it's really worth us taking time to consider the kind of question that we're asking, because this in turn will help us to determine where we're likely to find the best information to answer that question. Generally speaking, there are two kinds of questions that we might ask. The first is what we call a background question or a general question. And this is often about a particular clinical problem or topic. So an example of this kind of question might be, where can I find information about leadership in healthcare? Background questions often have two components. They usually begin with a root word, who, what, where, when, and why, and could be followed by a clinical disorder. For instance, what is glaucoma? Or why do people get asthma? For this kind of question, textbooks are still a really good source of information. Often in libraries, we have users asking us, can you find me a journal article regarding leadership in healthcare or some other kind of background question? If you take this kind of question to a database and run a search for leadership, for example, you will be overwhelmed with the number of results. So we often recommend textbooks as the best source of information for any kind of background question. And I've included a link to the NHS Wales library catalogue there, which enables you to search and borrow books across all NHS Wales libraries. The second kind of question we could ask is what's known as a foreground or a focused question. An example of this might be, does listening to music preoperatively reduce anxiety? So you can see there immediately that this question has more concepts than a background question. And for this kind of question, we can search a database containing peer-reviewed research. And it's these types of questions that we're going to explore further in this webinar. But as I've mentioned, background questions and the library catalogue here, I'm just going to do a quick demonstration of how our catalogue looks and works. So bear with me quickly while I swap my screen around so I can show you that. So this is our NHS Wales Library Search Catalogue. You can find it, it's a website, it's available at www.nhswaleslibrarysearch1word.cardiff.ac.uk. And this is the library catalogue for NHS Wales libraries, the NHS Wales e-Library and Cardiff universities. It's set up at the moment, as I can see on the right-hand side, to search all NHS Wales libraries, but we can change that if we want. So I could search just NHS Wales e-journals, for example. I could search NHS Wales, just NHS Wales e-books, or I could search NHS Wales and Cardiff University collections. We recommend signing into the library search catalogue first off. So I can see there, the third option, I can sign in with my NHS Wales email address. So I can use my NADEX account there to sign in. I can see there at the top, it's got my name. If I click my library account, I can see any library loans that I have and when they're due. It does show fines and fees there, but don't worry, we don't fine. So for an example background search, I'll pop in leadership. So if I'm looking for textbooks in particular, I'm just going to use the drop down here and search books, pop in leadership. So here, as I mentioned, I'm searching across NHS Wales libraries. So if I look here, for example, so I'm in Morriston Hospital Library today, but if I click here, I can see there's a book. And if I wanted this particular book, I can see it's available in Neath Talbot Hospital Library, Princess of Wales Hospital Library. So I'd contact my local library and I'd ask them, I'd request them to order that book for me on my behalf, and it'll come via the internal mail or via the mail to my local library, and they let me know when it's available to collect. If I just wanted to search to see what was on the shelf in Morriston today, for instance, I can use the filter option on the right-hand side. So I'm just going to filter it down to Morriston Hospital. So if I wanted to see this book, for instance, I can see that this book is available in Morriston Hospital, and it gives me the class mark there, so I can find it on the shelf. If I just wanted to find ebooks, for instance, I could use the filter here again, and I'll use NHS Wales ebooks. So any ebooks about leadership that I wanted to find. I can see I've got online access here. So I'll click on the link and it'll take me out to the ebook that I'm interested in. If I wanted to look for e-journals, for example, again, I can use that filter. And I can see what journal titles are available on the topic of leadership. And again, I can just follow the links there. So for example, this first link tells me that this particular journal title is available from 2007 to the present. And then I can access the articles. Our library catalogue does also search down to article level. So if I had a particular journal article that I was interested in, I could copy and paste the article title directly into the search bar there, and it'll tell me immediately if I have access to it online or not. So that's a quick tour of our library catalogue there, and I'll just switch back screens and go back to the presentation. So there are many different kinds of databases available to us to find healthcare research. Some resources for medical literature include the Cochrane Library. This is a collection of high quality systematic reviews. If you find a recent Cochrane review that addresses your question, then you're in luck, because that will have reviewed all the research that's available on that particular topic. We also have access to Embase. It's a biomedical and pharmacological database containing more than 29 million records from over 8,500 journals. It's especially strong in its coverage of drug and pharmaceutical research. Medline, we have available, which we're going to look at today, contains more than 23 million citations from over 5,500 indexed peer-reviewed journals. PsycInfo also covers psychiatry, management, business, education, and social science from the early 1800s to the present. So we also have a number of databases that we might use to search for information regarding nursery and midwifery, nursing and midwifery, and that includes the British Nursing Database, includes essential full text coverage from UK and other English language nursing and midwifery publications. Probably one of the most popular nursing databases is CINAHL Plus with full text. It's a robust collection of full text nursing for allied nursing and allied health journals. The version we've got provides full text for more than 770 journals. Llenyddiaeth is the maternity and infant care database, and it collates information and resources relating to midwifery. Some databases that we'd recommend when searching for allied health literature includes ARMED, covers a selection of journals in complementary medicine, physiotherapy, occupational therapy, rehabilitation, podiatry, palliative care, and other professions allied to medicine from 1985 to the present. Again, CINAHL Plus, which we've already mentioned, and also PEDRO, which is a freely available database of over 39,000 randomized trials, systematic reviews, and clinical practice guidelines for physiotherapy. There are also databases available containing literature regarding healthcare management, and this includes the Healthcare Administration Database and the Health Management Information Consortium produced by the Library Services of the UK's Department of Health and the King's Fund. A number of social care databases have now been added to the NHS Wales e-Library database collection, and that includes Social Care Online, produced by Social Care Institute for Excellence, and it's the UK's largest online database of information on all aspects of social work and social care. Social Policy and Practice is a comprehensive bibliographic database for those working or studying in the health and social care sectors. The Sociology collection provides access to sociological abstracts. So if your topic is related to aspects of public health, then these databases can be very useful for that, and not just social care. And all the databases that we've discussed here, and I know a very long list, are available to all NHS Wales staff and students, and are available via the e-library website. Generally speaking, we find that Medline and Embase are the two most commonly used databases. So this slide really just gives you a direct comparison between the two. So Medline is administered by the National Library of Medicine in the US, and Embase is administered in Europe. So Medline tends to have more of an American focus, and Embase has a slightly more European. There is overlap between the two, but any kind of rigorous search, we would say, would include both databases. And certainly for a systematic review, Medline, Embase, and the Cochrane would be searched as an absolute minimum. But as I say, in our example search today, we'll be using Medline to run our search. So just to move us on to the next section now, and this is how to structure our question. So before we get to the databases, it's really important that we take some time to think about how to structure our question. So there is a framework that you might already be familiar with that helps us to break down our focus question into key components. It's known as a PICO framework. The P can stand for patient, problem, or population. The I for intervention or treatment. C might be a comparison, although this may not be applicable to every question. The O stands for outcome. What is the effect of the intervention? Now, not every question is going to fit neatly into a framework like this, but don't panic about this. Just try to break your question down into the different concepts to help you with the searching. So the PICO is one example of a framework, and it's particularly good for clinical questions, and there are many others. The SPICE framework is another example, and this is more suited to questions around patient experience or satisfaction. And as I say, there are many different kinds of frameworks available. They're all there to help you to break your question down into concepts, but don't get discouraged if your question doesn't fit neatly into a framework. So this is an example question that we could use. In children with sickle cell disease, is the long-term use of prophylactic penicillin absolutely necessary to prevent infections? So in this instance, the P, our population is children with sickle cell disease. Our intervention is penicillin. We're not comparing this with anything else specifically, just standard or no treatment. The outcome we want to look for is the prevention of infections. So here's how we could use the PICO framework to break it down into the several key components. You can also see in the table that I've started to think about the different synonyms with each of those concepts as well. So for this quick activity, I provided another question for us to have a look at. Does listening to music preoperatively reduce anxiety? If you follow the link that we're going to post in the chat box, it should open a Microsoft Forms view, and I want you to complete the activity 2 and select what you think is the right answer for each part of the framework. I'll give you a minute or so to do that. If you have any problems opening the link, don't worry, I'll put the questions up on the next slide for you to see, so you can use good old-fashioned pen and paper as well. And then I'll reveal the answer in about a minute. So I'll just give you a bit of time to do that. So I'll give you a couple more seconds and I'll move the slide on and reveal the answers. So hopefully you were able to have a go at that. So let's have a look. So here's how we break this particular question down using the PICO template. The patient or population would be the preoperative patient. The intervention here would be listening to music. There is no comparison here. And the outcome would be a reduction in anxiety. So now we can identify the key concepts in our clinical question. We're ready to move on and think about our search strategy. And the first thing we need to think about is identifying our search terms. One method of searching, the most common method, is keyword searching. And this is something we use every day, whether we realize it or not. When we search Google or any other search engine, for instance, we type in a keyword regarding the topic that we're interested in, and the search engine brings us back lots of results. However, unlike search engines, databases such as Medline do not make predictions if we misspell something, and it does not search the full text. Instead, it searches for the occurrence of the word or phrase, usually within the title or the abstract of an article. Some of the disadvantages of keyword searching is that language, and particularly the terminology that we use in healthcare, can be very imprecise. So when we're searching using keywords only, we need to try and think of as many different ways to express the concepts that make up our question. Another point to mention is that keywords only need to be mentioned in the title or abstract for it to be included in the results. So that's why we do also get papers that may be irrelevant when searching in this way. So just to illustrate this point, if we look at brain cancer as an example, we can see that there are many words for the same concept. So looking at this, I can see that brain cancer, for example, could also be brain tumor or neoplasms, and then there are pluralized versions and different spellings. If I was to search for this just using key terms, I would have to enter all those terms just to make sure that I'm covering that single concept of brain cancer. But there is another way of searching that enables us to enter one term and cover a single concept. Index headings are a controlled vocabulary of words that are assigned to articles by databases to enable the identification of articles on a particular topic, regardless of the terminology used by the author. Index headings are again something we use perhaps more often than we might realize. If you consider social media, for example, things like X and Instagram and the use of the hashtag, that's an example of us using an index heading. In databases, index headings are organized within a hierarchy of terms, starting with the broader and then narrowing down to more specific terms. In Medline, index headings are known as mesh terms or medical subject headings. So when you search with index terms, you get more precise results as they are not dependent on the terminology used by the author. However, you may find that the index terms available in the database do not match the concept that you are trying to search. So it's not a perfect way of searching either. It can also take time for articles in databases to be assigned index terms. And it's also worth pointing out that index terms vary between different databases. So the index terms used in Medline may be different from the terms used in Embase, for example. So let's look at an example here. If I'm searching for heart attack as a concept, we know there are lots of different terms for heart attack. We can search the index term for this within the database. And in this example, I'm using Medline. And the mesh term for this is myocardial infarction. So when I search this, I'm searching for articles regarding the concept of heart attack or myocardial infarction, not simply articles where the phrase myocardial infarction appears. We've already mentioned that index headings are made up of broader and narrower terms. So when selecting your index heading, you also have the option to explode or focus your search. Exploding your search will search your term and all the narrower terms associated with it. Focusing the term will search for papers where your term has been assigned as a major topic of the paper. To find out more about using index headings and exploding and focusing terms, there is a video available here which will give you an idea of how this all actually works and looks in practice. For any kind of rigorous search, we recommend that you actually use both keywords and index headings together where possible. This will help to ensure that you do not miss any potential relevant results. So when searching with keywords, you need to consider the different ways of expressing that concept. You need to consider all kinds of alternative spelling. It might be useful to look at papers on your topic and review the terms used in the title and abstract. To identify index terms, you need to look within the database thesaurus. It can sometimes also be useful to look at any papers that you might have already identified on your topic and see what index terms they have been assigned and what keywords the authors use in those papers. We're going to go back to the technique of searching using keywords in databases, and there are a number of tips and tricks that we can use to help us to get the most out of our search. So one example is truncation searching. In Medline, using the asterisk or the dollar symbol is an easy way to search for the root of words. Searching like this will broaden your search and bring back results with any ending of your root word. So here are some examples of using truncation. So we can see that searching using the root of pregnancy will find pregnant, pregnancy, and pregnancies. Saves us typing all those different words. We can also use that same method with nursing and smoking. But we do need to be careful not to overdo truncation. As we can see here, if we truncated the root of create, we will find create and creating, but we'll also find other concepts such as creature and creatine. Wildcard searching is another tool we can use. It's a quick way of searching for words with similar spellings or irregular plurals. In Medline, using the hashtag or question mark symbols allows for wildcard searching, which searches any 1 or 0 characters within a word. Like truncation, this will broaden your search and the database will bring back results with a variety of words according to the search. So here's some examples of how that works. We can see organization, for example, can be spelt with an S or a Z, depending which side of the Atlantic you're on. So using the hashtag symbol there will retrieve both kinds of spelling. And we can see that a wildcard can also work to help us to find an irregular plural, such as woman or women. We can also use something called proximity searching. In Medline, using the abbreviation ADJ, that stands for adjacency, and this will help you to find words that are near each other. So an example there is hip ADJ3 pain, and this will find hip pain, pain around the hip joint pain, hip or groin pain, wherever the terms hip and pain appear within 3 words of each other. You can also search in specific search fields, such as title, abstract, author, or journal, to make your search a bit more precise. I should also point out search commands that we use for truncation, wildcards, and proximity searching can vary between databases. So in Ovid Medline, for example, we use ADJ followed by a number for proximity searching. In the Cochrane Library database, you would use the word near with a / followed by a number. And this is certainly confusing when you're searching between different databases. But every database you use will contain a help option, which will list all the different search commands used for that specific database. The important thing for you to remember here is the different methods that will be available for searching. And as you can see there, we've recorded a video looking at these different database searching tips. Databases often allow you to apply limits to the search you're performing. So even after you've constructed a search strategy, you can narrow down your search using the limiter options. This enables you to be very specific in the type of references retrieved. Most databases allow you to limit to language, year, and publication type. So those are the most common you might use. Some also allow you to limit by human, gender, latest updates, etc. If you'd like to find out more about an alternative to using database limits, which are pre-written search strategies that you can use to narrow down searches to concepts such as geographical areas or publication types, have a look at the video there on using search hedges. But now we've reached the stage where we need to combine our terms together. To do this, we're going to use something called Boolean operators. You may not be familiar with the term, but again, it's something we use regularly without perhaps being aware of it. If we're about to go on holiday, for instance, and we're searching online, we might use a travel website to search for flights and hotels. So there we are combining using Boolean operators. So the main Boolean operators we can use are and, or, and not. So here's a diagram that illustrates the point. And to combine terms, we'll always narrow our search. So here you can see that we have combined the concepts of anemia and children. So the search results will contain papers that include both of those search terms together. So using and will narrow our search results. Using the Boolean operator or to combine terms will always widen our search. So here you can see searching pregnancy or childbirth will provide you with many more results relating to pregnancy or childbirth where either of these terms appear. One way of remembering this is or is more. Using not will exclude terms. So a search for high blood pressure, not heart attack, will exclude any papers that include the term heart attack. So go back to our original question. Does listening to music preoperatively reduce anxiety? Here we've broken it down into the key concepts using the PICO framework. We've thought about alternative terms for each concept. So for preoperative, we are combining all the different terms for this with or, which will widen the results. The same with our terms for music and the same with our terms for anxiety. And then once we've done that, we can combine those three concepts, preoperative and music and anxiety, and that should narrow our results. And again, to go into this in a bit more detail, we've got that video on Boolean searching. So our last quick activity, and this is a short quiz on Boolean search terms. So if you click on the link, which we'll pop in the chat box, it should open a Microsoft Forms for you. But again, don't worry. I'll put the questions up on the next slide so you can see them. Again, give you around a minute to have a go at this. See how you get on. Okay, so hopefully you've had enough time to have a go at that. I'm just going to move us on to the next slide and reveal the answers. So which operator would increase the number of search results? That's or. The operator and narrows your search results. What is the purpose of the not operator? And that is to exclude a term or phrase from the search results. And if I wanted to search for articles about anemia and children, which search string would give me the best results? And that is anemia and children. I will say with Boolean operators that it is very easy to click on the wrong one by mistake. The best thing to do is review your strategy to double check. And if you look at your number of article hits, it will sometimes be quite clear if you have used the wrong one. Okay. So now let's see how this all looks in practice when we actually apply it to a database. So we're going to use Medline here, and we're going to look at the example question from earlier. Does listening to music preoperatively reduce anxiety? So bear with me a second while I change my screens again. So the first thing we want to do here is go to the NHS Wales e-library website. So as I say, again, it's a website, so you can access it from anywhere, elh.nhs.wales. And I'm going to select the databases option here. So while I'm waiting for that to load, one of the things I should first mention is that I'm using the NHS network. So it shouldn't ask me for a username and password, but just to bear in mind that if you're using your own laptop at home, then it may ask you for your Nadex account. Well, that's taken a second to load. I might actually go back to the catalogue and just search databases on the catalogue and see if I can get to it that way. So here we are. So I'm going to use, for this example, the Medline All segment. So that searches the entirety of the Medline database. So I'm just going to select that. So this is what the Ovid platform looks like. So important to mention straight away that we're using the Ovid platform to search the Medline database. Ovid isn't a database in and of itself. Medline is the database that we're using. And I can see there because it's telling me we're searching the Medline database from 1946 to November 27th, 2024. Just to make you aware as well that the help option, so as we mentioned earlier about all the different search commands and all databases having that, you can use the help option there. So I can see I'm logged in at the moment. You do have an option to create an account. So we recommend you do that, and then later on you can come back and save your searches and things like that. So it's always a good idea to create a personal account for the database. So for our question then, preoperative is the first concept that we're looking for. So I'm just going to key in preoperative here. And I can see that I've got this by default, this map term to subject heading box will always be ticked. So when I press enter here, it's going to suggest some index terms for us. So there I can see preoperative care, preoperative period, both look pretty useful. And just to show you that tree structure that we talked about earlier, if I click on that there, I can see that preoperative care sits under that wider umbrella of perioperative care. And then we've got narrower terms there, and that sit under preoperative care. So for this, I'm happy to explode it. So I'm just going to select that there and click continue. These are floating subheading fields. So as we'd say, searching is a lot about trial and error. It's a iterative process. So you may find that once you've run your search that you're getting too many results. So you might want to come back, start again, and try to limit your search using one of these subheadings. But now we're just going to continue. So I can see there, preoperative care, 74,000, over 74,000 results. So now I'm going to move on to my my keywords. So I'm going to put in preoperative, so open bracket, preoperative, or pre-surge with an asterisk, or pre-operative with another asterisk, or pre-surge with another asterisk. And then I'm going to close the brackets, so that's one search line. And then I'm going to put .tw with another full stop there. So that stands for text word, and that is searching the title or the abstract where those keywords appear. So now when I hit search, because I've polled the database to search the text word, it'll override the index heading part, so it won't search for the index headings, it'll just search for the keywords as I've typed them in there. So now we've got, in line 1, we've got our index term for preoperative care. In line 2, we've got our keywords. So I'm going to use the Boolean operator or to combine those together. So in line 3, we've got that concept of preoperative care. So now let's move on to the next concept. So that is music or music therapy. So I can see there, when I look for the index term, we've got music therapy. Another thing to show you is that we can actually hit the scope note feature on the right-hand side here, and this can be really useful for finding keywords and also just to make sure that the index term covers the topic that you think it does. So it gives you a bit of a definition there. But as I say, really good tip is that it can give you a nice list of keywords as well if you're struggling to think of keywords. So for this point, I'm going to select both of these and hit continue. So I can see there music or music therapy as an index term has been searched. So again, I'm going to open brackets and pop in my keywords. So if I put in music, song with an asterisk, we'll find songs. Thing. And then again, I'll put .tw to search for those terms in the title or the abstract of the articles. So just a note, as you're going along with your search, some of the top lines will disappear. So I'm just going to click the expand button over here just so I can see all the lines of my search, because I want to be able to see them. So in lines 4 and 5, we've got that concept of music. So I'm going to combine those together again with or. So in line 6 now, we've got that concept of music. So let's go on to our last concept, which is anxiety. So again, I'm just going to search anxiety and try to find the mesh heading for it. So I can see that anxiety is there. So I'm going to explode that. Not going to use any of the subheadings. I could also put in stress and have a look to see if there are any mesh headings for that. Psychological stress. So I'm going to explode that. And then my keywords, I'm going to open brackets and I'm going to put in anxiety or anxious. Worries, and then close brackets, and again, .tw and another full stop, and that's going to search the title or the abstract for me. So now in lines 7, 8 and 9, we've got that concept of anxiety. So again, we're going to use the or operator to combine those. So now we're ready to use the and operator to narrow our search. So as we said, in line 3, we've got the preoperative care part. In line 6, we've got the music part of the search. And in line 10, we've got the anxiety part of the search. And we're going to use and now, and that should hopefully narrow our results. And there we are. We can see we've got 213 results there. So if I scroll down, I'll be able to see the results. I can click on the drop down here to see the abstract, so I can find out a little bit more about the article that I'm looking at. If I click on the article, it's going to give me the abstract. It's going to give me suggestions for keywords or index headings if I'm looking for more inspiration. Down here, we've got the option, as we mentioned, limits earlier. So if I just wanted, articles within the last 10 years, say, I can limit it that way. English language articles. I could select humans as well if I wanted to. And then once I've applied those limits, I can hit search. And it'll limit the results down again for me. So now I've got my search results. There's a few things I can do with them. I can select them all, and I've got the option to print them. I could email them to myself. I can export them. So there's different options to do this. I don't think it'll actually show you the options I can see here, but it'll allow me to search for it. It'll allow me to export it to a Word document. If I'm using reference management like EndNote or Zotero or RefWorks or some other kind of reference management, I can export it in a file that can be uploaded into reference management software. I can also export it into a spreadsheet as well if I wanted to. So there are quite a few different options there. On the right-hand side, I've got these links here, which will take me back to the NHS Wales library catalogue and try to search for the full text for me. So not every article you're likely to find in Medline will be available on the NHS Wales library catalogue. An awful lot will be available instantly, but there'll be some that aren't. If that is the case, still get in contact with your local library and they'll try and find the reference for you from somewhere else. Another option we've got is, like I mentioned earlier, we could search for the title of the article in the library catalogue. So if I just go back to the library catalogue here and select article from the drop-down, I can literally paste in the title of the article. And it'll tell me straight away if the full text is available. So I can just follow the link through there to get access to the full text. So that's it for Ovid Medline. So I'm just going to take us back to the presentation. But now we've sort of had a look at how Medline works, I just wanted to say a few things about the nature of literature search in generally. Always think a demonstration like this can be a little bit misleading, and there is obviously a worked search example that we've done before, so we're able to do it quickly in 10 minutes or so. But in reality, what you're likely to find when you go off and do some searching for yourself, and the best way to learn is to practice. So strongly encourage people to go off and have a practice yourself. I think that you'll find, and it's the same for us too, that searching is an iterative process, and by that I mean there's usually a lot of tweaking involved. You might find that the first search you do, you get too few results, so then you have to go away and add some keywords, and then you might get too many results. So in reality, you end up running lots of different searches until you find the one that works for you, and that's fine. That's the nature of searching. Unfortunately, there's no such thing as a perfect search, and by that I mean you won't be able to run a search that finds all the relevant results ever published on your topic without having to sift through irrelevant results as well. So there's always that trade-off between what we call precision and sensitivity. So a very precise search will find very relevant papers, but will also potentially miss relevant papers. A very sensitive search will find all the relevant papers, but you will also retrieve lots of irrelevant papers that you have to sift through. So when you're searching, it's really making a judgment call based on your research objectives and how much time you have to sift through the results. So to try and illustrate that a little bit, I've included a little scale there, and this is just my interpretation. But if you were conducting a systematic review, then you'd need maximum sensitivity at one end of the scale. If you were just looking to find an article to reference in an academic assignment, for example, then you could run a really precise search because you're just looking for that one relevant article. Very often we're trying to find a balance somewhere in the middle. So really think about your research objectives, how much time you have to really realistically sift through the results, and then tailor your search accordingly. As I say, we're usually aiming somewhere in the middle most of the time. So just to summarize what we've covered in this session, we've gone through the search process from framing our question through to formulating our search strategy and then applying this to a database. We've looked at Medline, for example, here, but there are many other databases, as we've talked about. They may look slightly different when you're searching them, but the general principles will remain the same in terms of the search techniques we can use, although the search commands may vary slightly between databases. Every database will have a help page, and it's always worth familiarizing yourself with that, as it'll give you details about the different search commands for that specific database. And wherever you're based in NHS Wales, you will have a local librarian on hand to support you with the search process, and you can find their details by visiting the NHS Wales Library's website. And as we said, we'll send you the slides of this webinar, and that includes a full list of resources, which is on the following slide. So we'll stay on. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask any questions, and we'll be happy to stay on and answer them. And just last thing to say before I let you go, there's a very short link to the evaluation form here, and we'd very much appreciate it if you could take the time to fill that out, please, and let us know if there are any other kinds of training that you'd like to see from us in the future.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask either now or in the chat. Beth has a question.
Hiya, Beth.
Hello, Beth. Your mic's on, but feel free to ask.
Sorry, I was trying to do the react one, not the hands up.
Oh,
thank you.
That's fine. That's right. Thank you. Oh,
Katarina?
Hi, hello. Thank you very much indeed for your very comprehensive overview. Thank you. Just had one silly question, maybe that I'm making a mistake, but you talked about Medline and Embase. Yes. How do they differ from PubMed?
Okay, so Medline and PubMed. Oh, sorry. Go on, Catherine. I'll let you ask the rest.
No. Is that okay? Is PubMed different?
Yeah.
And is it equally valid?
Yeah, so they're pretty much the same database. Medline and PubMed are the same database. So what we recommend, if you're searching Medline, there's no need to search PubMed as well.
Right.
PubMed is sort of it's put together by the NLM, the National Library of Medicine in America. So the PubMed version is the one that's freely available online that people can see, that anyone can see. We purchase, or the e-library purchase a subscription to Medline for everyone in NHS Wales. And the reason we do that primarily is because historically, some of the search commands are better in Medline. You can do more advanced searching the way we have in Medline. as opposed to PubMed. But in terms of the content, they're very
It's
much
exactly the same. It's exactly the same. So it's just the types. That's really helpful. Thank you very much indeed.
No,
thank you.
That's okay. And Embase is different. So although there's overlap, so we do recommend searching Embase as well, because that is different.
Plus Embase.